Welcome back again. Had somebody ask me about why I don't buy a truck, and I don't think I've ever done a video specifically talking about lease versus owner operator, or lease versus lease purchase, at least as far as how Prime has it set up. Um, and it's a good question, and it's something, honestly, I had thought about. Not with this truck that I have right now, but moving forward. I have a little less than 2.5 years left on the lease of this truck, and you get to this particular point. Obviously, I'm probably about 2 years before I have to make a decision on. The plan is to finish the lease on this truck. I'll start with that because I've talked about it before. The entire point of leasing, in my opinion, is to complete a lease. If you don't complete a lease, all the money that you have in your lease completion incentive, and basically Prime takes 5.5 cents of every mile that you're dispatched on, sets it into an account. They take a tire fund. Off the top of my head, I believe it's 3.5 cents. Set it into a tire fund account. That money is held aside for you. It's money that you've earned. So if you think about it, if you get paid, let's just throw out $500 for a load, $1,000 for a load, they take a portion of that money that you're paid and they put it into a mileage account. They take a portion of that money and they put it into a tire fund account. Basically, just how many ever cents per mile that you can do the math and figure out. I'm making $1.50 on this load. I'm making $1.75 on that load. I'm making whatever. Of that figure, they're going to take 5.5 cents and put it into your mileage fund. They're going to take 3.5 cents and put it into your tire fund. You can change the tire fund and increase it if you want. It has to be a minimum of 3.5 cents. And then there's you get into excess mileage. That's something that I'll never deal with doing what I do. Solo drivers tend to not deal with the excess mileage fund. It's mainly for team drivers, and kind of makes sense when you think about it. You're putting almost double the mileage in a given week on a truck if you're 5,000-6,000 miles in a given week instead of 2,500, 3,000 miles. As a solo driver, you're going to put more wear and tear on the vehicle, so they put extra money aside. But that's not money that Prime is taking away from you. It's money that's deposited into an account, and it's basically a safeguard. I hate the term bonus. So a lot of people talk about lease completion bonus. It's not a bonus. It's your money. The term is actually lease completion incentive. So you can monitor the money that's been put into those particular funds. The tire fund can only be used when you need to replace tires. Now that can be, I ran over a nail, I need to replace this particular tire, I need to replace one tire. Or it can be, I need to buy 6 tires for the entire truck. But I've got about a little over $3,000 in that particular account after a little over a year and a half. My mileage money is a little over $7,000 at this point. I think it's closer to $8,000 in that account. So I'm close to $11,000 between those two accounts. Now, if I turn this truck in today, if I were to say, forget this, I'm driving to Springfield, I'm turning this truck in, I'm done, Prime keeps that money. Prime is going to hang on to that money, say, you decided you didn't want to complete this lease. The only way you're getting that money back is if you keep it. So that's why I have always said lease is designed for you to complete the lease, because the only way to access that money is to complete your lease. I had about a 15-month lease on the last truck I was on. I got about $5,000 or $6,000 off the top of my head out of that lease. It was a short lease. It was a truck that was a used truck. That's just the way it was. But that's all the money, and you look at it like, well, Prime paid me. No, Prime had already paid me that money. They were just hanging on to it until I completed the lease. And as an incentive to complete the lease rather than turn the truck in early, yes, this is a walk-away lease, but to get that extra funds, you have to complete the lease. So that's how you get paid the rest of your money, and it's your money. So start with that on the lease side. Lease is designed to complete a lease, so you can get access to that. And there are people who complete leases that earn $20,000-$30,000 and more. Team drivers, because they have so many miles and because they have the excess tire fund, or sorry, excess mileage fund, are going to be closer to that $30,000 figure. But you can earn a lot of money on a lease completion incentive just by running. It's 3 years in reefer for a lease. It's 4 years in flatbed and tanker for a lease. And at the end of that particular time, you get all that money back to you. And it's money that you have earned. So that's how you make the excess amount of money in a lease program through Prime. Now, how does that compare with purchasing a truck? So again, through Prime, you get paid a percentage of the load. Depends on 71, 72%. Most of it's 72%, tanker 71%. As a lease driver, you get, plus then you get the fuel surcharge on top of that figure. And that's how much you make. Then they take out the various things, your lease payment, your permits, your fees, pay for fuel out of all of that. All those things along those lines take that 5.5 cents, that 3.5 cents. So that's how you make your money as a lease driver. I have a video explains exactly how leasing works. And then at the end of the lease, you get that lease completion incentive. As an owner-operator, Ace Leasing is a lease purchase program that Prime has. First of all, there is a down payment at the beginning of the lease. It's $14,000. Each year that you lease with Prime, they'll take $1,000 off of that particular $14,000 until you've been here for 6 years. So they'll take up to $6,000 off, so you can put only $8,000 down instead of $14,000. And then you have your weekly payment to pay off your truck. The payments are going to be roughly the same on a weekly basis to purchase a truck versus to lease a truck through the Ace Leasing program. I've heard a lot of people say, well, let's go and buy a truck through a dealership because it's going to be much cheaper than to go through Prime. Well, a couple of the things that you forget, Prime has certain requirements. You have to have all the safety equipment that Prime requires. You have to have the forward radar. You have to have the collision avoidance system. So all that stuff has to be put on the truck before you can lease or before you can run under Prime's authority. Now, if you're talking about running power only and having your own authority, completely different story. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about running under Prime's authority as a true owner-operator who is either leasing the truck through Prime, buying a truck through the outside. And yes, if you just go and get a price from a company, from a Freightliner dealership, Peterbilt dealership, whoever it is, you may be able to get a lower figure than what you're being told by Prime, but that might not include your IFTA maintenance. That might not include the collision avoidance system. It might not include the tire pressure monitoring system. So you have to factor all that in before you can say, you have to be comparing apples to apples instead of apples plus, a side of caramel to dip it in plus whatever to just the apples. So you have to be comparing the exact same thing. So I'll start with that. Leasing compared to Ace Leasing is comparing more of the same thing because you're talking about the same truck, more or less. The weekly cost is going to be roughly the same if you're talking about a brand new truck. If I were to call up successfully, it would actually be Pedigree Sales, is the company that does truck sales, and say, I want to turn this truck in. I don't particularly care about my end of lease completion incentive. What can I order? What can I buy? When that's ready, I'm going to drive to Springfield, drop this thing off. I want a brand new truck. It's going to be about the same cost. If you want to get something that's used, you're more than welcome to do that. Pedigree Sales does sell used trucks. They, in fact, sell the trucks that Prime has been using that have completed 3 years or 4 years. And the cost will be lower on a weekly basis. But what it gets down to is operating cost versus your weekly payments for the actual lease or the actual truck payment itself. Especially on an older truck, you're going to get out of warranty much, much faster than a brand new truck. So you say, well, okay, well, let's pay the same amount on a lease as a lease purchase, and then we'll have that same warranty. And in 3 years or 4 years, those are your two options. You can, even in tanker, you can do a 3-year lease purchase. You can do a 3 or 4 year lease purchase, and for the most part, you're going to have that warranty the entire length of time. Couple of differences. In lease, regular lease, if you have something that happens on the truck, I hit a deer about a month or so ago. I think I talked about this. That's $1,000 deductible for repairs for that particular. It actually ended up being about $4,100 in damage to my truck. Good times there, but it's $1,000 deductible, so it only cost me $1,000. Prime, as a lease operator, will break those payments up as you wish. You know, if you want to do $500, $100 a week, $50 a week, it all depends on what kind of standing. If you're somebody who constantly makes money, they'll break it up pretty much as low as you want to go. You know, very rare to go less than $50 a week, but that certainly is possible. If you're somebody who doesn't make a lot of money, they might want to take more money on a given week. So that's an option for you if you lease. If you are a lease purchase, Ace Lease, that is not an option. They will not break repairs. They will not break deductibles for insurance claims. They will not break those up into payments. If you have $1,000, you have to pay it that week. So you need to have more money set aside at the beginning. Now, when I talk about $20,000 or $30,000 at end of lease, if you're doing a lease purchase, there's no reason that you can't 2 or 3 years later, you pay the truck off and say, okay, I'm just going to sell it, and sell it for $90,000, $80,000, something along those lines. That's certainly an option for you, but you still have to sell that truck. You might not sell that truck right away. You're guaranteed when you turn your lease truck in that you're going to get your lease completion incentive within a week or two. You're not guaranteed to sell your truck. I'm sure many of you drive around the country as it is, and you might see a semi parked on the side of the road, and you might see it sitting there for a month, 2 months. 6 months later, you may see that same truck sitting on the side of the road, and that person hasn't been able to sell it. So that's one of the things, is you have to be able to sell your truck to get the money out of it, whereas in leasing, turn it in, not a problem, you get your money, and you get a brand new truck immediately. No questions asked, no down payment, no nothing like that. Now, you can try to work with with pedigree sales to sell your truck, but again, you're not going to get that funds absolutely immediately. You're more responsible for the down payment then again on your next purchase, if that's the way you're going to go. Also along those lines, overall operating costs, like I said, if you're going to if your whole concept is, I want to get rid of my truck payment. Okay, well, you keep your truck, let's say you pay your truck off in 4 years. Year 5, year 6 of having that truck, well, all of a sudden now you've got a truck with 500,000 miles, 600,000 miles, everything's out of warranty, something happens, would have been covered if you were a lease driver under warranty maybe, because you would only have 200,000 miles on it. A lot of the components are 500,000 mile warranties on these trucks, 300,000, 500,000 mile warranties. All of a sudden you've got a truck with 600,000 miles and nothing's under warranty anymore, and you've got to pay that out of pocket. And obviously they don't make things like they used to applies to trucks as well. Trucks used to be, you can put 1 million miles on them, no problem, just keep rolling, and that's not the case with the way the trucks are built today. There's just no two ways about it. So your operating costs will increase the older and the longer you hang on to that truck. So if your thought is, well, I'm going to pay it off in 3 years or 4 years, and then I'm not going to have a truck payment, I'm just going to be rolling in the money. If you don't keep up on maintenance, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have a lot of overall operating costs that are not the truck payment itself, if you don't keep up on maintaining that truck properly. And again, those aren't things that you're going to be able to break up into payments. The other thing on the breaking up into payments or on a lease, if you have something major with your truck that happens as a lease driver, called Driveline Repairs. As an example, the last truck that I had, rock hit the radiator. That was the only driveline repair that I have ever had in 6 years of driving for Prime. You don't pay that right away. Driveline repairs that are over, I believe it's $500, Success Leasing will split the cost of those 50% with you. And you get billed, and it gets taken out of your lease completion incentive. So that particular, I think that was a $1,200 repair off the top of my head. That didn't get broken down into payments. That just at the end of the lease, that came off the top of my lease completion incentive. And like I said, Success took, I think it was $1,200 to me, so it was like a $2,400 repair. My responsibility was the $1,200, but it came out at the end where instead of getting, so I got $5,000, so I would have gotten, $6,200 instead of the $5,000 that I got. But again, that's the only, in 6 years, that's the one driveline major repair I've had to do, and it wasn't a mechanical flaw, it was a rock bounced up underneath and hit the radiator on my truck. And again, if you're only keeping the truck for 3 or 4 years as a regular lease operator, most of that stuff, it's going to be something fluky like that that's going to go wrong for the most part, because everything else will be under warranty. When you first lease a truck, brand new truck, used truck, you have a 30-day bumper to bumper. If there's anything wrong with it, get it fixed. And I can't stress it enough, when you do start leasing, if there is anything wrong with it, get it fixed in those first 30 days. If you wait, then it's on you because you didn't get it taken care of right away. Now, obviously, there are things that pop up that you weren't able to identify, but typically when something's wrong, you notice it within the first couple of days or weeks of driving. And I know the very first truck that I had a coolant leak problem that I was able to identify within the first 2 weeks of having it and was able to get it repaired. So that's one of the benefits of leasing. You're going to have it under warranty pretty much the entire time. You get a brand new truck, a tanker, at least for me, get a brand new truck every 4 years, pretty much no questions asked. And you get your payments for repairs and whatnot, insurance claims broken up into payments instead of having to be responsible get it taken out all at one time. I guess the way you look at it, company driver assumes the least amount of risk. You don't have to pay for repairs, but you get the least reward. There's a reason that company drivers don't make as much money as lease operators. Because if your truck, if you look at it this way, you're just assuming no risk. You just drive your miles and that's what you get paid. Lease operator assumes a little bit more of the risk in terms of some of the repair costs, but there's that potential for much more in terms of earnings. I've made well over $2,000 in a given week, which was basically impossible. You have to drive 4,000 or 5,000 miles as a solo operator is impossible. There's just not enough hours in a week to do that as a solo company driver, but it's possible as a lease operator to generate that kind of revenue. And then obviously you look at an owner, all of the risk is on your side. If something catastrophic happens, there's no safety net for you. There's no 50% off the Driveline repairs and we'll hold on to it until the end of your lease. Yes, you can sell the truck for more than the lease completion incentive. However, you also have to make sure the truck sells instead of guaranteed to have the money at the end of lease. So with all that said, I'm still deciding on what I want to do. Again, I have 2.5 years. Really have to make the decision probably in about 2 years before, so we typically order trucks about 6 months from end of lease. So I have to make the decision beginning of 2023, which sounds crazy to me, about if I want to lease another truck or if I want to attempt a lease purchase for my next truck. But those are the things that you think about. Those are why don't you just buy a truck and then when you pay it off, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you don't have to worry about your lease payment, your truck payment, but you do have to worry about the cost of repairs. And you have to worry about the cost of repairs on the truck that at that point is older, not under warranty. Then you have to worry about selling it once you decided that you want to get another truck. Obviously, at that point becomes being smart with your money, saving your money, having money in reserve to take care of repairs when they come up. Because there's the thing, if you own your truck and there's a catastrophic driveline major repair that's going to be thousands of dollars and you don't have it, you now don't have the money to repair it. You don't have any way to generate money because your truck's broken. You can't drive to get the truck repaired, and you can't sell a truck that's broken. for what you thought you could sell it for. So what do you do at that point? So that's the downside of the lease purchase ownership part of buying a truck, is if you don't plan your money well. Whereas if that same thing happens as a lease driver, you can get it fixed. You can either put it into payments if it's low enough. If it's a major enough repair, you can defer it until the end of your lease, and you're right back on the road making more money. Hope you found this interesting. These are the things I'm thinking about in the next couple of years, whether I want to lease another truck, whether I want to buy a truck. And obviously, there are more options besides that if I want to continue doing this as a career. Hope you find it interesting. Questions, comments down below in the comments, or there is email if you want to email me and ask questions. And obviously, if you want to come to Prime, link in the description, click on that, take you right to the application. Thanks for watching. Lease versus lease purchase. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you guys next time.